Discover the hidden magic. When a witch heals an injured CEO with an unexpected life-changing connection. In the heart of Maplewood, whispers of a witch echoed through the cobblestone streets. A fragile reminder of a time when magic thrived in the sunlit apothecary run by Jane S. family. The scent of herbs still lingered, though dust now cloaked the vibrant storefront. Jane, a 29-year-old witch with a wild spirit and an even wilder heart, knew her town was slowly sinking under the weight of struggles, yet she clung desperately to her grandmother's wisdom. Their lives intertwined like ivy. Each day was a battle to keep the legacy alive amid the skepticism of neighbors who viewed her gifts as more curse than blessing. It was a chilly afternoon when Robert Langston's name began to spill from hushed lips in Betty's diner, the wealthy tech CEO whose promises and power hung like dark clouds over their quaint little town. The air crackled with tension, skepticism blending with an undercurrent of fear. Jane donned her apron and stepped into the apothecary, feeling her grandmother's steady presence guiding her. She yearned to lend a hand, heal and build bridges, but doubt gnawed at her heart. Then, a sudden disaster unraveled the common thread of their lives. Jane stood frozen outside the hospital as Robert collapsed on the pavement after a car accident, the gasps from the crowd puncturing the frigid air. Panic was palpable as the ringing sirens echoed through Maplewood, shattering the stillness. People stood witnessing the drama play out before them, a mix of concern and resentment sparking fierce pride in their vulnerable hearts. The whispers grew harsher. Would he come onto their turf and ruin everything? Jane, you have to help him, her grandmother urged, her voice low and intense. Embrace your heritage. With a tight chest and swirling emotions, Jane hesitated, battling the dread of failure. Could she really reach across the chasm that divided them? Yet, before she could voice her fears, she caught a glimpse of Robert, vulnerable, bleeding and human. It ignited something within her. Compassion. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As chaos unfolded, she pressed through the crowd, urgency coursing through her veins, the murmurs of judgment echoing in her ears. Each step closer felt like a rebellion against the stigma he represented. Yet there was a reflection of her own isolation in his eyes. The connection sparked underneath layers of wealth and expectations. Robert bore his own scars of loneliness. But when Jane instinctively reached out to heal him, a flare of energy ignited the air between them, cutting through uncertainty and misconceptions. Just as hope blossomed in her heart, something went wrong. A wave of fear pulsed through her, and shame washed over the crowd. They felt the remnants of their distrust rise anew. Tensions exploded, and in that moment of collision, both Jane and Robert tore down the pretenses they wore, revealing the human struggles of their intertwined lives and challenging the roots of their town's beliefs. As they stood on uneven ground, emotions raw and questions lingering, it became clear that healing wasn't just skin deep, it was a journey into understanding. Could they bridge the gap of their vastly different worlds? Or would the weight of judgment and expectation tear them apart forever? The moment hung in the air, thick with unspoken words and heavy with the weight of shared vulnerability. Jane looked down at Robert, his eyes filled with both confusion and gratitude. They sparkled with an ache that mirrored her own. The doctor's voice broke through the murmurs of the crowd, reconstructing reality from the whirlwind of emotions pounding in Jane's chest. Get him stabilized, the doctor barked, pushing through the onlookers. Jane stepped aside. Yet a small part of her longed to hold on to the connection they had ignited. She watched Robert being whisked away on a stretcher, his features momentarily ghosted by pain but brimming with an essence she recognized too well. As the chaos dimmed into the sounds of sirens fading into the distance, the crowd began to disperse, murmurs morphing into fragmented conversations. Jane stood on the sidewalk, heart racing, overwhelmed by the depth of what had just unfolded. Some neighbors sent her wary glances, grappling with mixed thoughts. Was she a savior or part of the problem? For a moment, she felt the weight of their judgment pressing against her. But amidst the tension, there was a flicker of something else, a fragile sense of hope. Jane. Her grandmother's familiar voice cut through the lingering buzz. Are you all right? The question hung between them, rich with a history of worries and unhealed wounds. Jane turned, facing her grandmother, who was brimming with love but also concern. The warmth of her presence grounded Jane. "I felt something today, Grandma. It was different. It felt real." Her grandmother studied her, eyes flickering with understanding. "Sometimes connection is born from disruption. You reached him in a way that many have not." I just wish Jane exhaled, wrestling with her thoughts. What if they never accept me for who I am? What if this just makes things worse for Robert? Change often starts with one moment of vulnerability. Her grandmother replied softly, "You have a gift, Jane. It may not be clear to others yet, but it's clear to you." Jane took a step back towards the apothecary, the wrought iron sign swinging gently in the breeze above her. Dust accumulated around the edges, but the bones of the place still glimmered with potential. She could still heal. She could still nurture life in her way. Yet, could she extend that healing beyond her walls? Days turned into an anxious blur. Jane spent sleepless nights wondering if Robert would wake, if he would recall that fleeting moment of connection. There was a part of her that hoped he would emerge changed, like the townspeople quietly severing the chains of their doubts, beginning to perceive magic as something sacred rather than scary. Meanwhile, the rumors swirled. Robert was recovering, but no one in town had seen him since the accident. Some claimed he was holed up in his luxury penthouse, while others whispered he had returned to Maplewood, searching for answers, for healing both physical and emotional. On an early Friday morning, wrapped in the aroma of herbs and essential oils, Jane received the text that would alter the path of her life, a simple message from Robert. "Can we talk?" Her heart raced. A world of possibilities opened before her. Did he want to understand what had happened? Or had the walls around him thickened, the distance stretching further? As she prepared to face him, a blend of hope and fear gushed through her. This could be the moment that reshaped everything, or it might dismantle the fragile connection they had forged. Steeling herself, Jane took a deep breath. She sensed that deeper magic lay ahead, beckoning her to dive in, risking everything for the chance of healing. What awaited her on the other side of their conversation? Would they forge a path toward unity? Or would old fears cast their shadows once more? The bell above the apothecary door tinged softly as Jane stepped inside, a familiar sense of comfort washing over her. Each blend of herbs and oils seemed to wrap around her like a protective blanket. But today that warmth felt different, charged with a hopeful tension. She glanced around, noticing the sunlight filtering through the dusty windows, casting golden spots on the wooden floor. It was as if the universe, too, was holding its breath in anticipation. She could hear her heart thumping in her chest, each beat echoing her anxious thoughts. After an eternity, the door creaked open. Robert stood there, framed against the bright outside world, his silhouette both imposing and fragile. His face bore the marks of recent struggles, but there was something electric about his presence. He stepped in slowly, eyes locking onto hers, and for a moment time stood still. "Jane," he said, voice barely above a whisper, but it carried a weight that reverberated through her. She motioned for him to sit at the small round table, where they used to share cups of herbal tea and laughter. That day felt like a distant memory, a flicker of what could have been. "I can't believe you came," she managed, trying to keep her voice steady. "I needed to," he replied, a hint of vulnerability in his tone that tugged at her heart. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." The space between them crackled with unspoken questions. Jane took a breath, gathering courage. "How are you feeling?" "Really?" Robert leaned back in the chair, the tension in his face easing just a fraction. "I'm still healing. Physically it's been tough. But emotionally, it's complicated." "Complicated how?" she asked gently, afraid to push too hard but wanting to understand. He looked away for a moment, gazing out at the world he once ruled. "After the accident, everything shifted. I realized how fragile connections can be, how easy it is to lose touch with what truly matters." His honesty hit Jane like a gust of wind, stirring the leaves of her own unaddressed fears. "I felt a connection with you that day, Robert. Something profound. But I don't know if tell me about it," he interrupted softly, leaning in closer, his intensity drawing her in. "The moment you fell, I thought something terrible had happened. I could feel your pain like my own," she stated, her voice shaking. "And when you looked up at me, it was like I could see you for who you really are." Not just the CEO or a man behind walls, but someone who is struggling like the rest of us. He held her gaze, an open expression in his eyes that made her heart swell. I need to be more than just what people expect of me. I've been running away from my true self for so long. Jane sensed the depth of his words, knowing the battle was only just beginning. You can be more, Robert. Healing isn't just physical. It's about understanding, accepting all parts of you. He nodded slowly, the weight of her encouragement palpable in the air. But what if people don't accept me back? Acceptance starts within, she whispered, her pulse racing at the honesty between them. You have to find it in yourself first. Their eyes met, and the air thickened with uncharted possibilities. It was a moment where their past regrets and present hopes intertwined, paving a path toward potential healing. Suddenly, he reached across the table, brushing his fingers against hers. The contact sent a wave of warmth through her. I want to change, Jane. I don't just want to survive. I want to live. Jane could hardly breathe, the gravity of his words sinking in. They both held their breath, emotions brewing like a storm. But then, a tremor of uncertainty clouded his expression. But what if that change means leaving everything behind? What if I have to let go of the life I've known? The question left them both vulnerable, teetering on the edge of what could become a turning point. And just as Jane was about to respond, the door swung open once more, a gust of cold air rushing past them. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, disrupting the moment they had carved out together. The interruption left a question lingering on Jane's lips, unspoken yet palpable. Would their conversation lead them closer? Or was this the harbinger of yet another challenge to face? The figure at the door stepped into the apothecary, interrupting the fragile moment between Jane and Robert. It was a woman, tall and imposing, yet with an air of kindness about her. Dressed in flowing robes of rich colors that seemed to dance with the light, she surveyed the room with penetrating eyes. Forgive the intrusion, she said, her voice deep and melodic. I felt a shift in the energy here, as if something significant is unfolding. Jane glanced at Robert, whose gaze was fixed on the woman with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Who are you? Jane asked, an edge of caution creeping into her voice. I am Alara, she replied simply, moving closer. I'm a healer, and I sense you both are at a crossroads. Robert, unable to look away from Alara, whispered, How did you know? She smiled knowingly, her eyes sparkling like stars. The world speaks to those attuned to it. Your hearts are heavy with unspoken burdens. Healing isn't merely a physical act. It requires confronting truth and embracing change. Jane felt an unfamiliar sensation, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. And you believe you can help us? I don't just help, Alara said, raising her hand as if to calm their rapidly beating hearts. I guide. But you must be willing to take the journey. The air in the room shifted with her words, charged with an unexplainable energy that sent shivers down Jane's spine. Robert's eyes darkened with something akin to fear. What kind of journey? Alara glanced around, as though searching for the right words. A journey into yourselves. A journey to understand the depths of your wounds, and the light that exists even in the darkest places. Robert's expression tightened, uncertainty etched across his face. How do we begin? What if it's too late for me? For us. Alara stepped closer to the table, her gaze locking onto Robert's. It's never too late. The first step is the hardest, but it is always the most crucial. You must speak your truth, both to yourself and to each other. Jane could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Was it time to finally say what had remained trapped in her heart? She glanced at Robert, his expression a blend of eagerness and dread. What do you want, Robert? She asked gently. What truth do you have to share? He hesitated, his breath coming in shallow bursts. I want to be free from all the expectations, the masks, and I want you to know what I truly feel for you. The admission hung between them, heavy and electric. Alara beamed at them, her expression both encouraging and calming. Let this be your moment. Speak freely, let go of your fears. At that, Jane felt her throat tighten. I've wanted to say, but the words faltered. Would he understand how deeply she cared? How much she wanted to see him heal? Before she could voice it, Alara's hand hovered over the assortment of herbs adorning the table. Healing is a delicate dance. It requires courage, the willingness to step into the light of your truth and embrace it, however difficult it may seem. Just then, a small bottle slipped from the table, rolling across the floor. It shattered at Robert's feet, glass scattering everywhere. The crash echoed through the apothecary, breaking the moment and forcing Jane to flinch. Robert's eyes widened. This is what happens when things fall apart. I'm afraid of breaking even more, he said, voice laced with raw emotion. Elara knelt, reaching for the remaining shards. From what breaks we can rebuild. Trust that the pieces can come together in a new way. As he processed the meaning in her words, Jane's heart raced. The cracks in their lives might be deep, but maybe through honesty, they could find a way to piece it back together. When she opened her mouth to speak again, the door swung open yet again. Another gust of wind rushed in, as if inviting the unknown. The question remained. Could they truly embark on such a vulnerable journey, especially when the world outside seemed just as chaotic? Who else is coming? Jane wondered, her pulse quickening with anticipation. Elara looked up, knowing full well that change was about to course through their lives like a storm. The journey often brings unexpected guests. Are you both ready to embrace whatever awaits? And as Jane met Robert's gaze, they exchanged a silent agreement, courageously stepping forward into a world tinged with mystery and possibility. What awaited them on this path was uncertain, but something deep inside her urged her to find out. Could this be the moment that changed everything? The apothecary door swung wide, clattering against the wall, and a man stepped inside, soaked from the rain. He bore a striking resemblance to Robert, but there was a darkness to him that felt unsettling. His clothes were drenched, clinging to his body, and his gaze darted around the room like a frightened animal. Felix. Robert's voice broke the silence, disbelief lacing his tone. The man took a step forward, the tension palpable. I didn't think I'd find you here not like this. His eyes flitted to Jane and then back to Robert, confusion clouding his features. Jane could sense the shifting energy in the room. Elara remained composed, observing with keen interest. Felix's arrival felt like a storm that threatened to disrupt their already fragile moment. What do you want? Robert asked, surprise giving way to a rush of emotions that Jane couldn't quite decipher. Was it fear? Regret? I came to warn you, Felix replied, an edge creeping into his voice. There are things happening, things I can't explain here. You need to leave. Jane's heart raced. What was Felix talking about? Leave where? She asked, stepping toward Robert, instinctively wanting to protect him from this sudden intrusion. Felix, you can't just barge in here with vague threats. Robert shot back, his voice rising. What are you afraid of? Elara interjected, calm yet commanding. Perhaps the truth you fear is also your liberation. She gestured to the shattered bottle, which lay like remnants of their unspoken feelings scattered on the floor. Healing involves facing not just personal truths, but those that connect us all. Felix hesitated, the wariness in his eyes battling with something deeper, perhaps concern. I don't want you to get hurt, he murmured, and for the briefest moment, they caught a glimpse of vulnerability from him. Jane looked between the two men, each on opposite ends of a spectrum filled with unresolved issues. It was as if they were both caught in a web of history and hurt, with her standing in the middle, a silent witness. Felix, you came looking for Robert, but maybe what you need is to face whatever this is together, she urged, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. I don't need your assistance to handle family drama, Robert retorted, but Jane could see the crack in his armor, the flicker of fear intertwined with love. Family, Jane echoed, glancing to Elara, who nodded slightly, encouraging them to dig deeper. What do you mean? The air felt heavy as Felix took a deep breath, seeming to gather strength from the air around him. There's something happening in our family, something dark that's rising. I didn't know how to reach out, but I felt you were here. And I thought if I could just see you, the pieces of the puzzle began to coalesce. Yet the image remained blurry. Jane felt the urgency rise within her. You can't just walk away from this, Robert. We all deserve answers. We can't heal if we're carrying secrets. Felix nodded slowly, the fight giving way to something softer, more cautious. I wish I knew how to say what needs to be said. What if facing it means losing everything we know? It's what we don't say that often does the most damage, Elara chimed in. Robert's gaze flickered, a war raging within. Tell me the truth, Felix, what's happening? As the question hung in the air, shrouded in uncertainty, Jane felt the critical nature of vulnerability envelop the room. They stood at the precipice of a revelation that could shatter or strengthen them. Maybe it's time to confront the past and step into the light, Felix finally said, his voice trembling but resolute. What truth would emerge from the shadows? And would their bond survive the revelations destined to break through? The storm outside raged on, reflecting the chaos within. Jane knew that whatever happened next might change everything, yet the thrill of confronting their intertwined fates beckoned her forward. Could they face the shadows of their past together? Or would they find themselves lost in the storm? The air crackled with tension as Felix stood there, drenched and raw. Robert's eyes locked onto his brother's. A silent battle playing out between them. Jane felt the weight of their unspoken history, as if the walls of the apothecary were leaning in to hear the truth. What do you mean, something dark? Robert demanded, his voice barely containing a tremor. The look in his eyes was a mix of dread and curiosity, something that Jane found hard to bear. Felix swallowed hard. There are whispers, Robert. I've seen things, heard things. They come from our past, things we thought we could bury. His voice was shaky but fierce, like thunder in the distance, despite the vulnerability painted on his face. Whispers. Jane couldn't help herself. Like supernatural whispers? She knew the stories that circulated about their family, and they made her heart race. Not just the stories, Felix insisted. The reality is even murkier and more dangerous than any tale. The family lineage carries burdens we haven't acknowledged. We're being watched, hunted, almost. Robert shook his head, anger flashing in his eyes. You expect me to believe that? What proof do you have? It sounds like a madman's tale. Does it? Felix challenged, stepping closer. You think I would come here soaked to the bone, risking everything just to fabricate warnings? I wouldn't drag Jane into this either. She deserves to know what's at stake. Jane felt like she was caught in the eye of the storm. Each sentence spun her closer to the heart of a family's hidden turmoil. So what do we do? She asked, voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside her. Felix's gaze softened. We face it together. The secrets have been festering in silence for too long. Each lie, each betrayal has twisted our paths. If we want to heal and move forward, we need to uncover everything. Alara, who had remained a silent observer, now stepped in. Darkness only thrives in the absence of light. If you choose to confront these shadows, you may find that the truth brings more than just pain. It brings clarity. You have the chance to redefine your family legacy. The words lingered, hanging in the air like fog. Felix glanced at Jane. You've seen what we've hidden. You've felt it. You need to decide if you want to be a part of this to uncover the truth. Jane felt her heart thump loudly in her chest. I want to help, but I can't dive in blind. Just tell me what you think it could be. Felix's expression hardened with fear. I suspect it links back to our parents, something they tried to protect us from. It's not just ghosts in the family tree. It's deeper, darker. There's a reason this storm is raging outside. It's a sign, a warning. As thunder crashed, a pained look passed over Robert's face. One filled with memories he wasn't ready to confront. You mean to tell me that all these years we've been living under a curse? Felix nodded gravely. Yes. It's intertwined with our blood, Robert. To move forward, we have to either break it or succumb. The air thickened with dread as silence enveloped them. Outside, raindrops pounded against the window, echoing the turmoil inside. They were facing a crossroads. And with each revelation regarding their family's past, the stakes soared. Whatever that darkness is, we need a plan, Jane finally asserted, her voice steady, cutting through the uncertainty. We can't let it carry on like this. Then we'll confront it together, Robert said, determination igniting in his eyes. But we must be prepared for the consequences. This could bring everything crashing down, or we might just find our way back to the light. As they shared a glance, an understanding formed among them, binding them closer than before, like an unbreakable thread. But what awaited them in the shadows? And would the truth set them free or break them apart forever? The energy shifted as Felix took a deep breath, the raindrops outside beating a rhythmic tempo against the apothecary's window. It was apparent that they were on the brink of something monumental, but the uncertainty loomed large, thick as the storm clouds overhead. Fine, Robert finally relented, his voice low but steady. So what's our first step? How do we even start to unravel this mess? Felix glanced at Jane, gauging her readiness. We need to visit the old family grounds. It's where it all began. There are things buried there, both literally and metaphorically. I believe the answers lie in the ruins of our childhood. Jane's heart raced as she considered it. She felt a pull, almost magnetic. You mean the property by the lake? The one they never talked about? It had always felt like an unspoken mystery, shrouded in a fog of fear and resentment. Yes, Felix confirmed. It was sealed off after the accident, but that place holds more than just memories. It's linked to the darkness we've been surviving under. His eyes flickered with an intensity she rarely saw Robert look torn. We're stirring up ghosts. What if we don't like what we find? What if it's worse? We'll never know if we don't confront it, Felix replied, determination woven into each word. I'd rather face it head-on than live in the shadows. We owe it to ourselves, to our family. This is a part of who we are, whether we like it or not. The wind howled outside, as if encouraging their decision. Jane could feel the storm's energy resonating with the turmoil within her, excitement, mixed with a great sense of foreboding. I'm in, she said quietly. I won't back down that easily. I want to understand what haunted your family and, by extension, mine. With a nod of resolution from the brothers, they began to make plans. Robert moved to gather supplies, while Felix pulled out an old map from the apothecary archives. It was crumpled and yellowed, a relic of the past. This might help us navigate the property, he said, laying it out on the dusty counter. Jane leaned in. It depicted a sprawling area near the lake, with outlines of buildings that once stood proudly only to succumb to time and tragedy. Her fingers traced the inked roads leading towards an area marked danger. A flicker of fear mixed with intrigue surged through her. Is that where? She began, but the words caught in her throat. Yes, Felix confirmed, his voice a mere whisper now. It was the site of the accident. The day everything changed. Robert returned with a bag of flashlights and ropes, the adrenaline swirling around him. Let us get going before that storm hits us harder. We need to be prepared for anything. They stepped outside, the world charged with electric energy. The rain lashed against the pavement, but there was a sliver of resolve in their hearts. They climbed into the car, a heavy silence pressing down as Felix navigated the roads that would return them to the spine of their history. As they drove deeper into the storm, Jane couldn't shake the feeling that she was being pulled into a web of fate. Would the truth liberate them or ensnare them deeper into the darkness? With each passing moment, they were getting closer to the secrets waiting to be unveiled. The reality of what lay ahead rushed toward them like the oncoming storm. But how deep did the darkness go? And what would they find in that haunting place they once called home? The rain fell heavier, drumming against the windshield like a warning. Felix gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white under the weight of unspoken fears. Robert sat in the passenger seat, the tension in his shoulders visible even through the darkness that surrounded them. Jane in the back watched raindrops race each other down the glass, her heart pounding in rhythm. Each drop felt like a countdown to something monumental. Did you ever think we'd actually come back here? Robert asked, voice barely audible over the storm's crescendo. There was a mix of nostalgia and dread in his tone, a vulnerability he rarely showed. Not like this, Felix replied, glancing in the rearview mirror at Jane. We're here to uncover the truth, whatever that may be. The headlights cut through the sheets of rain, illuminating winding roads that twisted and turned like the memories they were about to unravel. The trees loomed like giants cloaked in shadow, their branches bending under the weight of the storm. Jane felt her throat tighten. Are we really ready for this? She whispered more to herself than the others. Ready or not, we'll face it together, Felix said softly, a reassuring strength threading through his voice. As they turned onto the gravel path that led to the lake property, an eerie stillness washed over the car. The storm seemed to pause as if holding its breath. The sign marking the entrance lay half buried in weeds, forgotten and derelict, like the memories they couldn't escape. When they stepped out of the car, the rain pelted down fiercely, but the cold only seemed to heighten Jane's senses. She breathed in deeply, the air tinged with the scent of wet earth. It was familiar yet foreign, a reminder of the innocence they had lost. Stay close, Felix instructed, pulling out the old map once more. The ruins are further down the path. We'll need the flashlights. They trudged through the mud, flashlights cutting through the darkness, beams trembling in the wind. Each step forward felt like an act of defiance against the fears that gripped their hearts. Jane could hear the water lapping at the shore, an echo of the laughter and joy that once filled this place now reduced to ghosts of a forgotten past. Over there, Robert pointed, his voice cracking. A crumbling structure, barely discernible in the shadows, loomed ahead. It had once been a family gathering place, a sanctuary filled with light. Now it was a shell, ominous and unsettling. As they approached, Jane felt a heavy weight settle in her chest. "This is where it happened," she murmured, fear coiling around her. Felix nodded silently, his expression unreadable as he took cautious steps forward. The wind howled again, almost like a warning. Shadows danced along the decaying walls, remnants of a time when everything had seemed so simple. Suddenly, a flash illuminated the eerie scene, revealing a shape in the darkness. Jane's heart raced. What was that? She gasped, the flashlight trembling in her hand. Before her eyes, a figure emerged, familiar yet shrouded in fear. It was a woman, her face half hidden by shadows, her eyes glimmering in the light. Jane's breath caught in her throat. "Who are you?" Felix stepped forward, a mix of recognition and confusion on his face. "Mom," he whispered, disbelief thick in the air. The storm raged on, but the real tempest had just begun. What truths would surface from the darkness before them? And what would they have to confront to find closure in their haunted childhood? The woman's silhouette seemed to flicker in and out of the shadows, like a forgotten memory struggling to be remembered. Felix took another cautious step, heart hammering in his chest. "Mom," he called again, voice shaking. The word felt both foreign and achingly familiar. The figure flinched but didn't answer. Jane and Robert stood frozen at the edge of the unsettling reunion, emotions churning inside them like the storm around them. Jane's stomach knotted. This was the woman they had all lost, their mother, whose absence echoed through their lives like a haunting melody. "Is it really you?" Felix asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The rain poured down harder, mixing with the tension in the air, creating a tangible weight they all felt. Slowly, the woman stepped closer, her face finally revealing the lines of time etched deep within her. There were traces of a smile that could once light up the darkest days, but now it was a shadow of what it once was. "Felix," she said softly, her voice trembling as though it hadn't been used in years. "Why did you leave us?" Robert managed, fighting against the tears that threatened to spill. His voice cracked with decades of pent-up questions. "You just disappeared. We thought we'd lost you." "Because I thought," she paused, looking around, as if the trees themselves were listening. "I thought it would be safer." "Safer?" Felix echoed, disbelief fueling his voice. "Safer for who? We were kids. We needed you." The wind howled, carrying away his words. The air felt charged, thick with unspoken regrets and shattered dreams. Jane felt paralyzed, every fiber of her being screaming to run. Yet she couldn't tear her eyes away from the haunting figure of their past. "What do you mean safer?" She finally found the courage to ask. "What happened?" Their mother took a deep breath. "It's tangled," she replied, glancing toward the lake with an expression that revealed a depth of sorrow. "There are things about this place that they weren't safe. Not for me and definitely not for you. You can't just run away from your problems." Robert shouted, his anger spilling over. "You abandoned us. There was no one to protect us." As the words hung heavy in the air, something shifted in the atmosphere. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble, and a low rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, almost as if it were a response to Robert's outburst. "Please," their mother pleaded, voice rising above the storm. "I made mistakes, terrible ones. But I did it out of love. I had to protect you from the dark." "What dark?" Felix demanded, stepping closer. The flashlight's beam flicked over her face, revealing unshed tears glistening in her eyes. "Dark secrets. Dangers connected to our family," she whispered, her gaze darting toward the ruins as if fearing they might come to life. "They follow me, follow us. If I hadn't left, I thought you'd be safe from it." Jane's mind raced. Answers were finally spilling forth, but they were tangled in webs of confusion and fear. The answers felt like they would change everything again. "I need to know," Jane said, voice steadying. "We need to know what really happened here. We came to find the truth." Their mother looked deep into Jane's eyes, a flicker of something passing between them. Then you must be prepared. Some truth should remain buried for a reason. Before anyone could respond, the wind picked up, whipping around them with a fierce urgency. The storm surged and the shadows deepened, threatening to swallow them whole. I'm not leaving until we know, Felix shouted, determination igniting within him as thunder roared overhead. The woman's expression turned grave, and Jane felt a shiver of fear course through her. What darkness did their mother anticipate? And would they really want to pull back the curtain revealing what lay beneath? The stakes were getting higher, and with unraveling secrets lurking just out of sight, would they truly be ready for what came next? The storm raged on, the air thick with anticipation as Jane, Robert, and Felix stood frozen before the haunting figure of their mother. The echoes of thunder punctuated the weight of her words, filling the silence with a palpable dread. Could they face the darkness she spoke of? Or would it consume them whole? Some truth should remain buried for a reason, their mother repeated, her voice trembling with a mix of sorrow and urgency. The wind whipped around them, as if urging them to turn back, but the determination in Felix's eyes told a different story. No, we're not leaving this time, not without answers. Jane took a deep breath, her heart hammering wildly. She stepped forward, drawing strength from the brothers beside her. We won't back down. Whatever this darkness is, we will face it together. We can't let fear dictate our lives anymore. Their mother hesitated, her gaze searching theirs as if looking for some glimmer of understanding. You don't know the shadows you're inviting in. This is bigger than all of you. Suddenly, a roaring gust picked up, and the trees howled as if in response to her warning. Jane felt a chill run down her spine, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins spurred her on. We're not afraid of the past. The only way we can heal is by confronting it. Listen, their mother pleaded, her voice breaking. It's not just about you. It's about the entire family lineage. There are things that were set in motion long before you were born. Collaborate with us then. Whatever it takes, we're ready. Robert's voice broke through the storm, an echo of the resolve in his heart. The storm howled, the raindrops blurred their vision as they stood together, an unwavering wall of support. Finally, their mother relented, the fear flashing in her eyes shifting towards a fragile resolve. If you truly want to know, then we must go to the heart of it. Take us. Please. Felix urged, eagerness lacing his tone. The woman nodded slowly, her silhouette casting a weary figure against the torrential backdrop. Follow me. But beware, darkness doesn't just wash away. It lingers close. She turned and led them deeper into the ruins, her steps cautious yet sure. Jane's heart raced as she followed, the brothers close behind. The memories connected to this place seeped into her very bones. The stories of laughter and light now entwined with fear and shadows. They squeezed into a smaller chamber hidden within the crumbling walls, the air inside heavy and charged. This is where it started, where our family made bargains with something they didn't understand. Their mother explained, her voice echoing, each word heavier than the last. Those deals brought prosperity, yes, but at a grave cost. What type of cost? Jane pressed, feeling the darkness slither within the walls. Fear. Loss. It's tied to the lives that led before ours, Felix replied, urgency coating his tone. There are accounts, untold stories of betrayal. I believe it's linked to the curse we've carried all these years. Jane suddenly felt drawn to a corner of the room cluttered with old trinkets and artifacts. What's this? She whispered, picking up an ornate locket, its surface glimmering even in the dim light. Burning with old magic, her mother said, stepping closer. It binds us, a reminder of what's at stake. Then let us break it, Robert declared, fierce anger flaring in his tone. Let us stop living in fear. Their mother looked at her sons, the weight of regrets etched deeply in her face. To do so would require a sacrifice, a rebirth of sorts. We have to confront what lies beneath the surface of our family's history. Then we'll do it together, Jane affirmed, locking eyes with both brothers. We each hold a piece of this puzzle. We need to speak our truth. The storm outside howled fiercely, a tempest reflecting the fury in their hearts. Yet the three of them stood united, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. I'll uncover my truth, Robert said, his voice steady, a flame igniting within him. I'll reveal mine too, Felix interjected, a new strength blossoming as he stood alongside his brother. With Jane's heart pounding, she nodded, voice unwavering. And I will share my truth. Today we set ourselves free. As they formed a circle, hands clasped together, a pulse of energy surged through them. The room shimmered, the darkness coiling like a snake before them, yet they stood firm. Blue light began to glow from the locket, sparking waves of warmth against their skin, drawing strength from their unity. The storm raged outside, but inside the chamber, a stillness grew, reverberating with a newfound power and collective resilience. In unison, they echoed, "We break the chains. We confront the shadows." Their voices harmonized, a song that resonated with a determination to expose the truth. With their mother watching, awe flickered in her eyes. "You face what I could not. You are stronger than you know. This is your chance to redefine our legacy." As the blue light pulsed brighter, illuminating their surroundings with a radiance, the storm subsided, easing its grip on the world outside. The darkness that had once hovered over their family wavered, twisting and curling like smoke retreating from fire. Together they shattered the veil of silence that had plagued their lineage, bits of the past breaking free as the light radiated far and wide, finally reclaiming the magic that had been lost. And in that fleeting moment, they felt it, the chains of the past beginning to mend, hope flickering like starlight, illuminating their way forward. As the last echoes of the storm faded, Jane could sense a shift in the air. They emerged from the ruins renewed, no longer confined by fear but empowered by connection, completely transformed. And in that very moment, an understanding lingered between them. They were not just a family united by blood but a force of healing intertwined with hope. As they took their first steps away from the darkness, Jane beamed at her brothers. "Together we can change everything." The sun broke through the clouds, painted streaks of gold across the sky. Hope surged in their hearts as they walked toward the light, embracing a future where love, healing, and connection would guide their path. Now is your moment. Don't hesitate, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support and truly engage with this community. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and let us know you want more incredible transformations like this one. And make sure to comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. Your voice matters. Don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to support the journey we're all on together.